Hello, my beautiful co-creators. Welcome to the Manifestation Queen podcast, where reality bends to meet your frequency. This is where we embody our full brilliance, where daily miracles, perfect love, and inner harmony become a way of being. Here, we receive more by doing less, refine our perception, and adjust our crowns as needed. If this episode landed in your energetic field, you're here on purpose. So make sure you hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. And today, I'm joined by Dylan James. He is a hands-on, solution-focused mentor known for his direct, no bullshit approach to deep identity and mindset transformation. With a mastery of how the mind works, he's reached over 38 million people online and personally guided more than thousands of individuals to break deep-rooted patterns in relationships, career, and self-image. Dylan creates a space where clients feel seen and challenged, offering precise feedback and practical tools that lead to rapid, sustainable change that compounds long-term. He works with those ready to do the work, receive honest guidance, and fully step into a new identity that produces results. So today, I'm honored to bring to you all the one and only Dylan James. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
It's so nice to see you. I'm doing amazing. As always, you look beautiful.
You look stunning and gorgeous and perfect as always. Thank you for being here.
Yes, I'm so excited.
I'm so excited. I love your background. Stunning skyline. Thank you for doing this.
Yes. We have beautiful Bangkok here. This is it has become my favorite city. There's so much to it with history, advancement. I mean, you really get everything here. So I wanted to make sure everybody got to see a piece of Bangkok.
Wow, so beautiful. And now we have this forever to always look back on. And yes. So beautiful. And, Dylan is such a wizard and magician in this field. Like, he really bridges the gap between manifestation and mindset with self-concept that a lot of people miss, which is such a crucial piece of the work that we're doing when we're trying to bring new things into our reality, our desires, our heart-led desires, our God-given desires. So Dylan really has bridged the gap for the missing link that I think needs to be discussed so much more. And he does it in such a beautiful, intricate way that is so needed. So Dylan, thank you for today. I'm so excited to dive in and bring everyone just so many key points and tools that they can really use for sustainable results.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing when we're looking at these topics. I think especially in today's world, we're so used to things being fast. Mm-hmm. And when we're looking at our life, sustainability is the most important thing, especially with what we're talking about here when it comes to breaking patterns and having to be vulnerable with yourself and really wanting to create a change within your life. It's not very fun to obviously get stuck in patterns. Mm-hmm. And so I think sustainability is the key to everything. Right.
So good. Yeah. So let's just hear a little bit about what, in simplest terms, what is self-concept? People may have heard it often, online, or they might have heard the term before, and maybe they still feel stuck. I think a lot of times they can hear something and then they can't quite understand it. So could you just tell us what is self-concept and why does it quietly control everything in our lives?
Yeah. So for me, self-concept in plain terms is just going to be the identity you exist in. And this is something that is built over time. We don't just wake up with an identity. So it really is the combination of the experiences you've had over life and how they have impacted you and imprinted on you. And so how it quietly controls things is it's quite automatic. So when we're awake, we think we're making conscious decisions. When we're having conversations, we're thinking, for the most part, it feels conscious, but it's a lot of automatic behaviors. It comes down to our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, and our perception. And so again, your self-concept isn't just this pie in the sky concept that we're reaching for. It's really understanding how you've been conditioned, how you've been raised, how different experiences have impacted you, and how that's going into the choices you make each day.
So good. Yeah. And it really is such a foundational tool. So I'm so excited to bring this to more viewers to really be a little more conscious about this. So if you're listening today, as the manifestation queens, you are powerful, gorgeous, brilliant, intelligent, and curious, and you really want the best for your lives, for your family, for your successes. You're resilient, but also some of us are going through really hard times, whether it's heartbreak or mistreatment or even betrayal, right? Like things that have occurred that just aren't working out the way that we imagined. And so in these areas, how can you, Dylan, explain to us a little bit about, being stable in your self-concept and your identity versus feeling overwhelmed with life and with all of the things while navigating hard times? Like, what's the discernment or the distinction in the differences of those two?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question one more time for me?
Yeah.
I just want a little bit more clarity.
Okay. So like when we're going through different things, like how does that shift for the self-concept change the way that we move through difficult times?
Yeah. So again, our self concept is automatic, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the identity that we're in has been built over time. When we find ourselves in challenging situations, I think bringing a focus to having a grounded identity and seeing, well, first off, okay, let me take a step back, right? When it comes to resilience, I think, you know, as adults, we go through so much. And when we're on top of taking care of ourselves, when we're performing well within our career, when we see ourselves as somebody that is really strong and again, resilient, when we're met with different challenges, it can bring out a sense of vulnerability, especially when our identity can feel grounded in strength and that resilience. So for me personally, the power behind self concept is even when you're met with a challenge and even when you're feeling vulnerable, when you know that in one area of your life you're a rock star and you can kill it, maybe that's work, whatever it may be, or self care, you have some evidence already in your ability to overcome challenges, right? And so it's about learning to look at your vulnerabilities or the things that you're struggling with very honestly to see, okay, well, clearly I can overcome challenges. Maybe I'm stuck in a pattern here, but I can already see within myself, I have a belief system that works in my favor now. What do I really need to assess in this specific area so that I can bring that same sense of stability over here? But again, I think this can be a bit jarring at first, and it's a vulnerable experience when you do know and see yourself as so strong and on top of things. And then again, like you were saying, being met with challenges. So I think self concept work can really create that stability to push through those challenges and to ground yourself.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think that what you're saying is that like the self-concept. Well, what I guess I could ask you is, do you think that like every time you're met with a undesirable circumstance that there is something lacking in the self-concept that's bringing that forward?
Yeah, no, I don't think that's always true. So not everything is a limiting belief or
Mm-hmm.
a trigger,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're human. And so sometimes things catch us off guard. I think the key distinction here is when it becomes patterned,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you really see the same set of circumstances happening again and again. But in my personal opinion, even when we have a healthy self-concept, I think that's the goal is have a healthy self-concept, be able to grow, be able to consistently challenge yourself. That doesn't mean we're superhuman. Like we still have emotions. We still have things that pop up that might catch us off guard. But I think a part of a health, when we're looking at it from a healthy self concept standpoint, we do have that grounded sense of like, okay, yeah, this is difficult. Or maybe this got a bit of an emotional reaction out of me,
Mm-hmm.
but I can overcome this. I think the distinction though is when you feel really defeated and it's the same things happening again and again, and you're confused by it too, because on a conscious level, you're like, what's going on? Right. But then maybe behaviorally and how you're showing up, there's a mismatch.
It's so good. And so would you say that this is like I guess when it starts happening over and over again, you do feel like, okay, this has something to do with me, right? Which is honestly kind of a gift in a sense, because you're like, wait, yeah, it kind of does, right? That is the self-concept kind of speaking through you. And you're like, it's like your inner higher being or something is like speaking to you. Like, yes, it does have something to do with you. This is the self-identity work that we need to step into. Would you agree? Kind of like that with the patterns?
Yeah, again, I think there's a fine line here, right?
Mhm.
So we don't want to over assume blame when we're discerning situations, right? And we're getting stuck in patterns. I don't think it's healthy to necessarily take responsibility for other people, but again, we have to look and see, okay, if I am entertaining the same things, if I am giving the same reactions, if I'm, again, finding myself in the same position, what within me is driving me here? Or what within me is ignoring certain things or pacifying certain things? And from that standpoint, it can be really empowering as long as you're not, again, beating yourself up and over assuming blame.
Yeah. And I guess what you're saying is it can kind of like be that stability to make sure that you're not going to do those things, right? To not to resort back into that, the old beliefs or the old patterns, and to realize, okay, the self-concept is the tool that can take you out of that and that can raise you above and see yourself above this to where it doesn't have to keep happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah. In that sense, yes. Well, again, a lot of self concept, when we're looking at this, it's automatic thoughts, feelings, behaviors.
Mm.
And so I think the key thing is when you find yourself in patterns and you're able to differentiate, okay, this isn't just a one off thing that just caught me by surprise. This is actually a pattern that's going on now. Um, when you can recognize that, then you can put a structure to yourself. And I kind of always look at this like the gym. Okay. I know this sounds like a little bit of a silly example, but with the gym, you can have like the perfect routines, eating down. You may not see a change right away,
Mhm.
but as long as you persist, there's this gradient like effect. And the same thing happens with self concept work. And so it's about, again, creating this healthy relationship with yourself of being able to validate your emotions, look at what's going on, recognize, okay, this is difficult. It's triggering something within me. There's a pattern going on here. But then stepping in with a disciplined routine that over time will allow for you to show up in new ways. And like you said, allows you to operate above it. And from that vantage point, that's where you break the patterns because now you're no longer interacting with the same person. I'm not going to react the same way. I'm not going to respond the same way. And that's really how you break the patterns.
Wow. So yeah, so it's compounding, kind of like the workout, right? Like you don't see the results right away, but those results are compounding to eventually they build, the abs or the muscles that you start to see in the physical. Even if
Exactly.
it's not happening
Yes.
right away. Yeah. So yeah, so what's the danger? I heard you say this in one of your videos because again, just for everyone who doesn't know or hasn't heard me rant and rave about Dylan, he is a huge part of my life. And although we don't talk all the time, I am consuming your content all the time and listening to your voice as I sleep, your subliminals, all the things. I've been loving the subliminals, by the way, because like you
They're
don't
great.
hear your like
Yeah.
affirmations. It's just like a vibe. And
Yeah.
then even this morning, I played the shift to your internal desire reality. I think it was called the new one that you just released. And it was like, hey
Yeah.
baddies. And I showed my daughter because she loves to say, she'll be like, hey baddies. That's what my daughter says. And so I was like, Ariella, look, listen to this. So she was listening with me this morning. And anyways, these are just crucial foundational tools that Dylan has brought to my attention over the past 5 years that has really transformed my life. So I just can't, rant and rave about you enough. I am always prescribing Dylan James to everyone who needs him, any clients, any friends. I just hand out your content like hotcakes because I believe in it so much. He truly is a magician. So I heard you in one of your videos say that there is not a danger, but there's a like a non-desirable outcome of overestimating or underestimating ourselves. I'm trying to think where I heard this, and I guess I can't really remember, but is there a danger, or like what can we do to really be actually like balanced and like perceive our identity as what it is, right? Because sometimes we can over exaggerate or underestimate our egos. All the things can come into play when we're kind of taking that internal inventory of who we are on the work that we're doing. So is there like a tool that you can give us to really be clear and to view ourselves in that balanced way for exactly who we are in that moment?
Yeah. So I think I understand the question that you have. And I think when we're looking at this, we have to really take into context each specific individual, and who you are when you're listening to this content, and really where you actually are in your identity.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're building ourselves up, right? I'm gonna use an example here because there is a danger in overestimating and underestimating on both sides, right? Extremes in any fashion is not going to be necessarily how we want to operate. Like you were saying, we want to find this happy, balanced medium.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but let's say somebody's, coming into this realm of self-concept work mindset, and maybe they don't have the best self-esteem, and they can see that based off of their internal dialogue. Um, maybe when they look in the mirror, they really don't like what they see, unfortunately, and those are actual thoughts that they're having each day. In that regard, applying self-concept work and going more in a kind of extreme sense of like, I'm amazing, I'm beautiful, I'm the best in any room, can really start to challenge the underestimating there, right? The lack of that self-esteem, to help somebody start to actually feel good in their body, to feel happy with themselves. Again, that's a little bit of an extreme,
Mm-hmm.
but eventually we want to get to this balanced place of like, okay, I went from this kind of low place. Now I've built myself up. Let me bring this to a nice medium where it's like, yes, I am beautiful. I really do love myself. I have healthy self-esteem, and it's grounded. So again, in terms of individuals and how they apply it, there's going to be certain approaches that will be beneficial depending on where you are. Do we want to stay in that extreme of like, you can rock that
Right.
confidence.
And how
Okay.
can
I'm
we
not
gauge?
against it.
Yeah. And how can we
Yeah.
gauge it though? What do you like? What's a good tool that we can really be like clear and gauge it really clearly?
Well, I think again, we have to consider, you have to take an outside perspective, at least in my opinion, on this. So when we look at society, it's generally not that attractive when we are cocky and condescending,
Mm.
right? So I think it's about finding a way to have a healthy self-esteem or a healthy internal dialogue, and not in a way that we're putting down others. I think that's the key differentiation here is when you're doing this work, yeah, I do think it's healthy to see yourself as the best or amazing and the most beautiful in any room that you walk in, because you deserve to feel that way within yourself, as long as you're not going around treating people less than. I think that's really the gauge of how to create that balance. Uh, and in that sense, you're able to appreciate other people's beauty. It's like, yeah, I'm the best, you're the best too. Let's all celebrate each other in a healthy way.
Mm.
So I think that's, in my opinion, how you should balance it, where we can all kind of have our own lane, right? And we can all really appreciate and love ourselves, but just recognize, okay, just because I have this internal dialogue or just because I have this identity doesn't mean I am necessarily better than other people, or that gives me the right to put people down.
Right. Because if they're putting other people down, like they probably wouldn't be so stable in their self identity. There's probably a lack going on in their inner, right? Like their inner beliefs about themselves almost. Would you say
And
so?
so that's that danger. Yeah, that's that
That's
danger of
danger.
kind of overestimating or underestimating is, like the example that I used, going to that extreme can actually help somebody a lot, really build themselves up in a way that they've never been able to think or feel about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also run that risk of it's not actually grounded, and it's another extreme, or that insecurity operating in behaviors by putting other people down. Because if you actually really do see yourself as good and amazing, you're going to be able to appreciate other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to feel threatened by them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's that danger of overestimating it. The danger of underestimating it is then, unfortunately, you can only accept from other people. Well, unfortunately and fortunately, okay, when we're operating in an underestimating way, it is unfortunate because we can only accept treatment from people that we are consistently giving to ourselves, or how we're speaking to ourselves, how we view ourselves. So if that's unhealthy, if that is we don't like ourselves, the tendency to be around people or drawn to environments that treat us in a similar manner is going to be high. And that's the danger of underestimating it, is you're going to be willing to unconsciously accept things that are hurtful, that are unfair, because to varying levels, that's what you believe you deserve and how you view yourself.
This leads me to my next question. That was so beautifully said. It's like what you believe yourself to be is here. So the other life and your experiences, your relationships will come to meet you there, like wherever you are at that standard. So that leads me to my next question is, how do you withhold respect without looking down on anyone or being too reactive? But like, say someone is blatantly disrespecting you. I know you talk about this on your channel often. Like, what are some ways that you can withhold that respect, withhold your boundaries, withhold your self-identity while people are like blatantly disrespecting you?
So I love this question. This
Yay.
is something I've been kind of talking about a lot on my channel, which is
Because
no
it
longer
happens.
allowing, yeah, it does,
Yeah.
100%. It does. No longer allowing the outside world to define you or validate you. So, one thing that I've noticed when it comes to belief work is you gain a very clear discernment on reality.
Mm.
And you can see, like, again, we're thinking from a healthy perspective. If I'm a healthy individual, I'm not going to be upset at somebody for having boundaries, or I'm going to actually enjoy somebody respecting themselves. So, from that vantage point, if somebody is willingly crossing your boundaries or disrespecting you, that is, again, more a reflection of kind of where they are in their identity
Mhm.
and not something for you to internalize. Now, this is important because obviously we don't, like, I think intrinsically as humans, we want to be liked. So when we see somebody getting upset or when we see somebody kind of like pushing for something, that can be a little bit jarring at first. But when you realize, wait, hold on, let me take a step back here. I deserve to have people in my life that respect me. I personally find it highly attractive when somebody respects themselves, when they have boundaries, when they're able to say no. And so, if this person right now is not able to respect that in me or appreciate that in me, then what they're doing and how they think does not define me. Okay, and that's again the point that I brought up with what I've been talking about on my channel recently is not allowing the outside world to define you or validate you. Once you have that discernment, it's really easy to not take things personally
Mm.
and to stand in your boundaries and your self-respect in a very grounded manner. So in my opinion, how you handle these situations with upholding your respect and your boundaries is, I think, again, discerning what's going on in front of you. What is actually going on, and if this is genuinely a moment where I need to say no, have boundaries, respect myself, the right people, even if they're a little bit upset right now, the right people are going to find that highly attractive. So no matter what kind of reaction I'm getting, I can just be confident in this. No, no, thank you. This is my boundary. If somebody has a meltdown over it, okay, that's fine. Right? Like,
Mhm.
you can say whatever you want to say. And this is that self concept of I deserve to have people in my life that respect me, that honor my boundaries, that I want them to have boundaries. I want them to respect themselves. So again, when you have a healthy belief system at place, the key thing with being able to uphold it is being able to discern what's going on, and then from that vantage point, you don't internalize any type of reaction you're getting. And you just kind of like let people do what they want to do. And you just stay grounded in who you are and moving forward and continue to have a good day. Like, it just is no. And it's okay. If you want to rise up to the occasion, you're more than welcome to. But my sense of self doesn't depend on you doing that. And that's a really beautiful place to be.
Oh, I love how clearly you explain that. It's so clear and tangible, and it makes me think of manifestation. It's almost exactly the same. How you said, when I'm thinking of when undesirable circumstances present themselves, right? It's like we stay grounded, we know and are relaxed knowing that things are unfolding in our favor and we don't react. So it really goes hand in hand in person, right? Like energetically, all the things. And so it leads me to my next really great question that I was brainstorming yesterday, and I thought we have to bring this to Dylan. So, how does self-concept and desire work together to either expand or limit what we allow ourselves to want?
So again, self-concept is it forms your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, and your perceptions, right? So if we have any sort of belief within us that we can or cannot have something, that's going to go directly towards the desires that we form.
Hmm.
And so when we're thinking about expanding, right, something too I've been talking about on my channel this past year is getting out of your comfort zone. And not just in a physical manner, but a mental manner.
Hmm.
When we can really get honest with ourselves about where we are in our identity, and I'm going to give a spoiler alert here for anybody that's listening that is new to self concept. The quickest way to figure out where you are in your belief system is to look at your behaviors. When you're in different environments that are similar to things that you want to experience, even when you're coming into contact with content, how you initially respond to it behaviorally is going to show you exactly where you are in your belief system.
What
And
can those
so these two
responses feel
things,
and look like? Can you tell us, like, what do they look like? What do they feel like? How can they identify these responses?
yeah. So let's put this in the stance of like money. Let's talk about like luxury.
Hmm.
Okay.
Lots of
So,
money.
yes, lots of money. Okay. So let's say you're going into like the St. Regis, a really nice five-star resort or something like that, or a car dealership that has multiple different luxury brands, right?
Hmm.
When we're looking at identity, it's how we initially respond. So if we feel out of place, if we feel like we don't relate to this experience, or we shy away from that, if we automatically say, no, I don't want to go there, I don't want to look at that, I'm not interested. Again, these are just automatic behaviors that are going on that show you something within your identity is not congruent with this experience. What I've noticed with myself too is when I've made enormous identity shifts, it does become automatic with that relating. And I think when you think about manifestation, I remember in content years and years and years and years and years ago, one of the things that people would say is like you want to look at experiences that you want to have and relate to them, but they never really explained how you do that. And that's where self-concept is important, because as you make these belief shifts, it's like the experience of like uh, I'm going to relate actually to myself watching a music video and it seeming something far away versus like seeing yourself being somebody that can be in that music video. So when you start to automatically relate to those experiences, you're going to go into those environments and it's going to feel like walking into your home. It's going to feel like something completely normalized. So how do you identify those behaviors? Again, it can be a multitude of things. It could just be avoidance completely. It can be you just feel physically uncomfortable in the environment. Or oftentimes there's this unconscious kind of jealousy that's projected, or you talk down about certain experiences. So there's a multitude of behaviors that will pop up in regards to really where you are in the moment behaviorally with an experience. But to go back to the main question, um, when it comes to desires, again, you're going to be confined to whatever belief system you're in. So that's where doing the belief work actually allows you to expand to things that you didn't even know were possible or a thing before. Uh, and it shifts your desires. You start to elevate in your standards. You start to elevate in your self respect. You start to elevate in how you show up and take care of yourself even more. And then you find, new awarenesses come in and your desires naturally expand.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so interesting. Like the surroundings, I remember it's kind of like the log of exposure too. It's like if someone hasn't been to enough luxury car dealerships, like they're not going to feel it's not going to feel normal. So it is that work, that belief system that you have to really embody it to where it's not above you, it's not pedestaled, it's not separate from you. But and I guess it's these subtle feelings that our behavior or our responses, like they're very subtle. Wouldn't you say, Dylan? Like it is a subtle feeling that we can
Yeah.
feel in response to these things.
I think, yeah, and that kind of goes into like making sure we're emotionally available with ourselves when it comes to belief work that we're doing too.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can pick up on those really subtle ways that our body is communicating to us. But even I wanted to use another example too when it comes to how this can materialize outside of even just the realm of luxury, but like with love, when people are seeing happy couples on the street, that could be something that they maybe, think thoughts like, when is that's never going to happen for me. It just doesn't seem relatable. Or when they're watching movies, again, they just kind of like mentally push against that experience.
Hmm.
So this is why self-concept is so important, because it translates to so many different areas of your life. And if you can really pay attention to those things, you can see, okay, I saw this and my initial response was an off feeling, a pushback or behavior of like avoidance or judgment. And if this is an experience I want to have, where is that coming from? Why? Why did my body automatically do that?
Mm. Yeah. And, also what I'm thinking about too is this work is ever evolving, but also we're always expanding. And like, even I'm thinking of like women, because essentially what Dylan's doing is revamping our confidence, right? Like if we go through hard time, but it's also sustainable. So it's revamping and then it's sustaining for the long term to become who you are and your strong, stable self-concept. So, as we go through different situations, different experiences, even childbirth, I'm thinking about too. Like a lot of times we don't even know what we're about to endure, whether it's birthing babies or whether it's going through a breakup. Like there's new experiences, whether it's walking into $1 million to buy $1 million car or shopping, like these new experiences that we've never experienced before. So sometimes we don't know how to navigate through these newness. And so that is where the self-identity really plays a huge role, wouldn't you say?
Yes, 100%. And 100%, yes. And actually, I think it is so, you know, when you really understand these topics, it becomes very fun. So if you're in a difficult place right now, whoever is listening again to this podcast or whatever format you're watching it in, if you're going through a difficult time, you'll be able to overcome it. But then you start to see like, okay, I overcame that and I saw results within myself that I can sustain. What other areas of my life do I want to look at now? What else do I want to build within my life? And it just becomes a fun, exciting process.
Yeah, it sets the bar, the baseline, it gets better and better. The baseline gets higher, the standard gets higher. Yeah, the blessings, the abundance, right? Like, so it is. It's
The other
so,
thing I wanted to say too, really quickly, I don't mean to cut you
no,
off, but
please.
when it goes to you brought up like when you go through pregnancy or you're put in new situations that you've never had before. You asked the question earlier about, what is the difference between a limiting belief and like having something that needs to be adjusted and not having one. And I think the main thing here when we're looking at this is really realizing too, a huge part of being human is just making mistakes. And even the word limiting belief can kind of have like this negative connotation to it, right? Like it's limiting. And we really just want to look at these things as feedback. And so even, when we're going into new experiences, of course, we're not going to have a belief system that supports that, right? But the beauty of this too is if you do understand self-concept work, you can already start to put yourself in a belief system before the experience occurs, which makes the transition through it so much easier. It's a really, really smart way of operating. To obviously, things are going to pop up that might be unexpected,
Mhm.
but even just reaffirming in like, I'm always able to overcome challenges. I trust myself to find solutions. I'm able to communicate clearly. Like just reaffirming these things
Mm.
can take the edge off. And then, you'll see that in how you're handling situations. And that's where you're just able to go into new experiences in such a stable way.
And also, would you say that the way that we view these experiences, past experience, current experiences, future experiences, would you say that that plays a big role in this work?
So, absolutely with past experiences, and yeah, I guess, yeah, all three of them. I'm going to say for past experiences, a really beautiful thing is when you uh, do self concept work and you really couple that with nervous system regulation. I'm actually going to take a step back. One thing that I've seen a lot of people struggle with online is how do I let this go? Right? Especially if you've had really negative experiences in the past or you've been jaded quite a few times, to just tell somebody to let it go is so unrealistic, right? Like, what do you mean? How am I supposed to like physically let this go? And I actually had an experience in my past where I tried to sit down and meditate and tell myself over and over again, I'm letting this go. And I did not let it go. So, the beautiful thing about self concept work is when you shift in your identity, that means you break the identification to your past experiences too. And so you no longer hold on to them, but you also start to view them from a different lens, because you're no longer emotionally attached to them. So that's really, it helps you let go. But that also impacts new experiences because now we're going into those experiences not holding on to the past. And then we can build up a belief system that supports normalizing those experiences, maintaining them. So again, from just a whole, when you look at this from a whole perspective, when you really understand these topics, your ability to consistently succeed compounds because you're not being held back by what's occurred throughout your lifetime, what's going on in society, what other people's opinions are.
Mm-hmm.
You really get to define life on your own terms.
Yeah, it's the way we view the past is really shifting the behavior for our future successes, for our future decisions, and the behavioral choices that we're taking and making moving forward for the future, because that's essentially what you're moving into, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So the next thing, which is so important to think about, I actually just went to Denver for a charity. Oh no, sorry, not Denver. It was Nashville for a charity event. And they are working with actually the AIDS community. So people who have AIDS, and, they have medication that can actually get rid of it won't be transferable and it won't be detected. And so I was thinking about that, and they said that, just the fact that people know that they have this, disease, it really it changes them, and they become homeless, they become drug addicts. And so like their self-identity just plummets the moment that they're labeled with this thing that seems to be undefeatable, which I guess they got it under control like to 70%, which is a huge, huge number. And so I was just thinking about that, and I said, if only they just heard the fact that this is becoming, there's something they can do about it. It's becoming undetectable, untransferable. Like soon, it's not even going to be a thing. And so, I don't know. It just led me to that idea where I was like, yeah, like the self-identity that they're identifying with this disease has really caused them to throw away their life.
Yeah. So, I mean, dominantly our identity is formed throughout our childhood. Mm-hmm. And that comes from the environment we're raised in, the example that our parents set. But as adults, we can go through traumatic experiences that really shake us to our core and start to shift and alter our identity, especially if it's traumatic, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where, again, knowing these topics is so useful because one, we have to validate that, right? So if you're in a difficult situation and your sense of self has been completely lost and you're going through an identity crisis, like, yes, absolutely validate and feel your emotions, but realize, pay attention to see like, okay, am I really taking this on as an identity? Am I starting to see myself as worthless and like I don't matter? And if that is occurring, there are definitely things you can do to adjust that, because you are absolutely worthy. And I'm so happy that, obviously the medication is amazing, mm-hmm. but I think the mental component of it too,
is a huge
when
factor.
we 100%, right? Like we experience physical, like if somebody breaks a bone, they know I have to go have surgery. I need to get this fixed. But I think we underestimate how experiences impact our mind. And I think it's really about removing that stigma too of like, okay, yeah, this impacted me and I'm struggling with these things and I can adjust it.
Yeah. And like the shame is so powerful. That shame can really just consume you. So it's really to get out of that place, to realize that, those emotions are changing, let them move through you. They're trying to come up to get released, which I thought was a really interesting way to think about it. Like if they're coming up, it's because they want to get out of the body, right? So it's like release them. And, Dylan, I urge anyone who's listening to visit his channel, check out his stuff. It's your video where you talked about your past and your childhood was so inspiring, because you as a person have went through so much, and, look at what you're doing now. Like you're literally shining the light so people can see what's possible for them too. Like you're the embodiment of that example.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, I have, I've had my fair share. and it's
Yeah,
been
if
a
they don't
journey,
follow
but
you
I
every day.
wouldn't, it's, but I choose to be so vulnerable and share these things because these are really sensitive topics,
Mhm.
like we started at the beginning. Most people that are coming into contact with this content, even if they don't fully identify with what I'm about to describe, but like they're go-getters, they're on top of themselves. They're able to be resilient. And then when you're met with life challenges, that can really shake you. And I think to hear from somebody that has also gone through really challenging things and they can set an example of overcoming it, that can start to really even impact you, right? And start to challenge beliefs if you're open to it. So I appreciate that. Yes, I've been through my fair share, but I think that's a common human experience. We all really go through a lot.
Yeah, and listen, if the things that we've gone through brought us here and brought us to what you're doing today, what you're doing for everyone, impacting all of these lives, millions of people, like I would say the lens of perspective can view them as beneficial. Like, as I know it's a big
Yeah.
claim, and it's really
No,
hard to say these claims, but I would just say, I hope that that's the end goal
yeah.
here, for everybody.
I think, again, we have a choice with how we get to look at experiences.
Mhm.
And when we go through difficult things, I don't think anybody wakes up and says, like, yeah, let me go through the ringer today.
Right.
Right. But when you look at it, it's like, I think that's just human nature.
Mhm.
Like we, when you even look back, I don't want to sound like a history lesson, but like when you look back at the evolution of mankind, it wasn't like we were just born here and everything was easy. We're built to overcome and to be challenged. And I think a lot of what I talk about is learning how to be in your body and trust your body and learn how to really not let the outside world program you any longer and to trust your own resilience. And so that's where I think those experiences can be really powerful because it builds up your grit. It builds up that strong sense of self. And then you can go out into the world and set that example for other people that maybe aren't quite there yet.
Absolutely. And so, as a mom, I just have to ask you these questions because always, as moms do, we think about our children. We think about how we can be the best moms for our families and, for our marriages, for our family unit. And so how can parents model self-concept, regulation, and standards for their children early on? Or how can children integrate this work, like as they're in their formative years?
Yeah, that's good questions. Let's start off with just parents.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously your child is your number one priority. And I think when you're looking at self-concept work and then you're taking into account all the responsibilities of life, right? You have work, you have to take care of your kids, there's just so much responsibilities. It's about first realizing that again, your children are in the formative years where they're building their identity. So the example that you set is important. But this isn't anything like climbing Mount Everest or completely becoming somebody that you're not. It's simple practices that you can integrate into your day that also set a healthy example. So when we're looking at both questions, I think a huge role for parents is teaching your children how to regulate themselves, how to feel their emotions, and building up their identity too. And I think when you look at how you're organizing yourself, if you can integrate those practices in with your kids, you're showing them like breath work. This is how you help your body regulate. Meditation. This is how you can really start to build up self belief, depending on how you're doing meditation. But then when you look at how that starts to transform you, you start to set a new example, right? So as you do this work and you grow and change, and we're putting this within the scope of healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start setting a even more healthy example with every decision that you're making,
Like what
automatically
changes would
congruent with your
give
belief
us
system.
an example of like what changes, like give us just a very vague example of like a mom maybe starting in this work. Maybe she's kind of burnt out. Maybe she's like those moms with like the messy bun, over caffeinated, having their glass of wine every night. I'll just go with that example because I think that's what like is kind of common. I don't know. It's not most common in my reality, but I have seen it, right?
Yes, no, I get it. I think like no, everybody has that vibe. Okay,
Yeah,
we can
like
all,
those moms on TikTok, they're just like in the messy
yes,
bun and they're like,
yes.
yeah, okay.
You
So
can't see it
let's
right
start with
now, but I
that
have my
reality.
messy bun.
And so what
Okay.
changes do you think would start to happen? Like for that mom, right? No shame to her. Listen, I was there before many times. Okay. Not anymore, but like I was for sure. So what changes would she make in her life? Just give us like tangible changes that she might start to see.
Yeah, no, I get you. So I think here too, when we're looking at that, when we're overworked and we're just going to say this very honestly and
Yeah.
openly, because again, in order to create these changes, we have to be really discerning. It's not about passing judgment on anybody, because like you said,
Right.
you've had those moments, I've had those moments, we've all had these moments, and it's about realizing we just got to look at the truth, right? So there's going to be some days where I think that's appropriate. Like, okay, fine. Today, I really don't care.
Wake up looking at that, honestly.
Yeah. Like some days. Yeah, no, I don't think it's again, like some days.
Let's fix this.
Yeah. So like, I think some days that may be appropriate, right? Like we have to have a balance with this.
Right.
But if it's all the time and we're putting our self-care on the back burner, we're not showing up for ourselves, we're just dumping caffeine into our body. I mean, just from a physiological standpoint, we're just loaded with stress, right? And so then you have to think, okay, what type of example am I setting here? And again, just very logically, if somebody is rushing through their day, they're constantly stressed out, they're not taking time for themselves, you're most likely going to be a bit more agitated or annoyed in your interactions because there's this constant urgency. So without even realizing it, the example you're setting is to be dismissive in some instances, or with urgency, there's just a lack of time. So you're not able to be as present. You're not able to be, you're not able to be as discerning. So that, when we look at that behavior, though, that way of operating, it is in ways a lot of avoidance with self. So I'm again not able to be fully present with myself. Maybe my schedule is really spread out, which I totally understand that. But you're probably also not having the time to process your emotions as well too. You're just so wrapped up in day-to-day life and things are happening. Maybe it constantly feels like blows. Okay. Now, from the child's perspective, that is also setting an example of, well, I'm not going to process my emotions. My emotions don't matter. Again, it can just impact in so many different ways without even consciously realizing it. Because I think the intention here is obviously everybody, I want to say this here first, as mothers, I think it is so important to get the belief in alignment that like, I am an amazing mother and I'm allowed to make mistakes. Okay. Like, and I actually want to talk about that when we're looking at how these things impact children and how to set that healthy example from a physical standpoint. So by no means do you have to be perfect, but and that's actually something that needs to occur, is accepting your mistakes and accepting imperfections. But when we're looking at how these things impact children, again, when we're rushing through all these things, we're not creating that space for that real engagement with self. And I had a point. I think I just lost it for a second, but it will come back to me. The intention here is never to, obviously we have to take care of these responsibilities. So what I'm trying to say is clearly, if you could be these things, if you could be present, you're doing your best, right? But it's just little things that you can integrate into your day where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, let me take 5 minutes here to regulate myself. Let me take 5 minutes here to meditate. Let me have a more present conversation.
Right.
And then as those changes occur within yourself, it really does start to translate into different decisions you're making.
Yeah. And there's no shame in that, like, it's like, these are crucial things that we're doing for our benefit. But oftentimes moms can kind of view it as a selfish thing. They're like, oh, I'm being selfish, or they don't even want to take that time away from their children because they're so quick to judge. And really it is that compounding result that, is fueling your cup and it overpours into your children. And then they really do start to mirror back to you what you are exemplifying. So, I want to leave people with one last thing. I would love for you to just give us one tangible thing that we could do that will give us the fastest results and jump timelines and collapse all limitations in this work.
Yeah. I would love to answer that. Is it okay if I go back to what you were just saying though, really quickly?
Yeah, please.
All right. So when it comes to selfishness, because I understand this point, I really want to challenge this because it's actually not something selfish. It's actually the most giving thing that you can do, which I know may sound a little bit odd, but first off, there's a way that you can integrate these things that include children,
Hmm.
right? So like, sweetie, let's do breath work today. Maybe they don't understand, but again, you're setting that example and you're including them. And then if you sit down to do a meditation, maybe you're doing a meditation for something that you need to adjust, but you can have them do a meditation on something that you can see would really help them,
Hmm.
right? So it doesn't have to be something that is done selfishly or on your own. It can actually be a really beautiful, fun bonding experience. It's a way of taking these topics and making it engaging and fun. But the second reason why it's not selfish is because when you really think about this, again, your children are developing right now, and so the example that you're setting, the relationships you're entertaining, the way you're behaving, what you're accepting, how you're respecting yourself, you're showing them what is normal. And so when you take this time to really invest into yourself, it's the most giving thing that you can do because you're setting your children up for success by making sure that you're taking care of yourself and setting the best example, which relates to, again, there's just a few things I wanted to say
Yeah, thank you.
with mistakes, right? So when we're looking at interactions with children, I think a big thing with parents is obviously no one wants. I think the biggest fear is like being a failure as a parent, right? Like everybody is like, I want to make sure I'm doing the best. I want to give my children the best. And you can really beat yourself up when you feel like you can't do that. But when we're thinking about healthy, right? We want to set a healthy example. We want to build children that can be autonomous and go out into the world and handle whatever is thrown at them. That means they're going to make mistakes. So that means we have to be okay with making mistakes and just be like, hey, sweetie, yep, you know what? I was totally wrong. You're right. And that builds up their confidence. I made a mistake. And so then you start setting an example of it's okay to make mistakes. You release that pressure of perfectionism
Hmm.
on yourself as well, too. And again, there's so many ways that you can integrate this in with family dynamics from a vulnerability standpoint, showing that it's okay to feel emotions, it's okay to make mistakes. And then you transition over into, as this example is being set, giving your children the ability, now you make mistakes and I trust that you're going to make the right decisions. And when you do make a mistake, let's sit down and let's talk about it and let's figure it out together. I think if you can take that into parenting and placing this focus on yourself, it's not selfish at all. It's actually setting your children up for complete success because you're putting time in intentionally that will make enormous shifts in how they go about the world and the dynamics they create for themselves and future generations. So
Yeah, the
I just wanted
ripple
to make sure
effect.
that was said.
Yeah, it's like the ripple effect, the compound, it's all so impactful and it's so imperative. So, yeah, so where can everyone find you, Dylan? Please share with us your social media. Everything's going to be linked below, but please give us all of your details so everyone can find you and work with you and your magician like courses, all of the things that you do so beautifully.
So all of my handles for social media is going to be the same. It's I am_Dylan James. And then for my business, if you ever want to do any sort of one-on-one coaching or I also offer monthly coaching as well too, which is a really, really amazing experience. That's going to be at presentnowcoaching.com.
Oh, and he really is just the embodiment. And these are sustainable results that will have lasting results. And you'll have these tools to really utilize for the rest of your lives and for your children's lives and for everybody that you are around and for all of the desires to shift with ease. It really is the foundation to bringing forth all your desires into your reality, curating them and designing them exactly how you want them to be because there is really no limit. And so that's what we're doing as Manifestation Queens. And I'm so honored to have brought Dylan James to you all today. So I wish you all the most stable, beautiful self-concepts and have fun with Dylan and his work and contact him for any courses and one-on-one coaching because he is the one and only person I've ever seen do it at this level of expertise and intricacy. So check him out and we will see you all next week. Dylan, thank you so much for coming on and I will see you soon.
Yes.
Thank you.